Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors. Get all your hound hunting needs at conkeys.com. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Oh, we got called to go over to Illinois to catch a bull calf that had been out for, all summer. And, just thinking about the dogs hunting and stuff like that. That's probably, that one field is probably 300 or 400 acres of, standing corn.
Mm-hmm.
And dry. It was in the fall. I remember, it was that. And, without them dogs, you'd just never be able to get that done.
Yeah.
You're talking, 400 acres in this field and 300 or 400 acres in the next field and a ditch running down through there. And that's where people that call us to catch these cattle, they're just, you even if you get them spotted, you can't keep up with them.
Yeah.
Through the brush or the standing corn or something like that. So you've got to have the dog and be able to have them cur dogs to be able to hear them, to bay and go hunt those cattle and find them. And like that day, I remember finally just riding down the drainage ditch and couldn't hear anything, and just finally seen that calf pop out with two dogs, baying on his front end. And he wasn't probably 50 yards from us, but just, 30, 40 mile an hour wind and dry standing corn.
Oh, geez.
You can't hear anything.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, we finally did get him caught, but, that's just why we've got to have those dogs
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Because, we use them a lot in pastures and stuff like that, catching cattle and baying cattle and doing that type of deal. But when the cattle are loose, that's when they're really handy.
Yeah.
When it's no different than, or I'd say it's no different. I've never been on a bear hunt or anything like that, but those dogs, they track, they go find, and they start making noise.
Mm-hmm.
They start baying and trying to stop them cattle from running off, and it gives you time to get there, know where everything's at, that type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, we did have, when we started out, our dogs were, I started out, I was 17 years old when I bought my first one, which was a Catahoula.
Okay.
And I really liked the Catahoulas, and I had her for probably 3 or 4 years by herself. Ben, that I do this with,
mm-hmm.
he had a blackmouth male that he'd got from a buddy of ours down in Texas. And we ran those two for quite a few years. And then, I was probably 20, 21 when I moved to Oklahoma, and I ended up getting another one while I was out there.
Okay.
Catahoula female. And I really started using them quite a bit out there.
How old are you now?
33.
So you've been doing this for a little while.
Yeah. I started catching cows when I was 17. I've got some real good buddies that live right here close to me, and they're in their 60s now, right there at 60. And they were doing it back, I before I was around.
Oh, yeah.
Probably before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
Or right around there. And then another couple buddies of mine, Ben, which I still catch, me and Ben do it now. Him and another friend, Luke, they did it kind of after Randy and JD. And Luke's got busy now doing some other things, so now me and Ben do it.
Okay.
So it's kind of, been going on for a while.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a family thing, but it's a close buddy thing.
Yeah.
We've all just kind of go on with it.
That's pretty cool.
And Randy and JD were running curs back, like I said, that was probably the early 90s, I think. Late 90s, somewhere in there.
Nice. Well, before we get too far into this, this one's a little different. Usually we're talking about running, some sort of tree game, or even if it wasn't tree game, I've had hog hunters, coyote hunters. We're talking something a little different today. We're talking about hunting cows up. So
yeah, it is a little different, but it's it's all the same.
Yeah,
I mean the dog, just working dogs.
Yep. But for the listeners, they know that I'm a cur dog man at heart. I've got a hound. I've got some curs, and cur dogs have always interested me. And part of that is because of their versatility and because of the fact that they're that do-it-all dog. And growing up watching Old Yeller. Now, granted, the movie depicts a very different picture as far as the dog, but just what the dog does. That's because the book is based on cur dogs, and so.
Oh yeah, yep, and they are very versatile. I mean, I hunt anything with mine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like I've got one female out here right now that's a 3-year-old, and I try not to put her on too much anything else except for cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other thing is, I mean, it takes time to get these dogs going and get them really broke, and I don't want to take this dog here and go to Oklahoma or somewhere and go hunt hogs and have a freak accident.
Yeah.
But other than that, they are very versatile. I mean,
mm-hmm.
we'll send them down a ditch and hunt coyotes with them a little bit and things like that.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
And decoy, use them for decoy dogs.
Yeah.
On the coyotes, I really enjoy that with them.
That's pretty awesome. But before we get too far, why don't you introduce yourself, Spencer? And you've kind of started giving us a little bit of your backstory, but you can continue that as well.
Yeah, yep. My name is Spencer Grubb. I'm 33 years old and live here in Southwest, Indiana. And we got a little deal we call Indiana cow catchers. We catch loose cattle for people and hard to catch cattle and just ornery stuff.
Mm-hmm. And you got some pretty cool videos on Instagram. That's how I stumbled upon you. And
well, thank you.
You don't realize how hard some of those wild cattle fight you. And you guys are roping them and trying to load them on trailers and hunting them down. That's pretty crazy.
And that's, like I said, with the dogs, normally how we go about it is, somebody calls and they've got, there's a lot of it probably is weaning calves
mm-hmm.
that have been weaned off a cow, or somebody goes and buys a set of calves somewhere from somebody else and they move them to their farm, and storm comes through and puts a tree down on the fence.
Okay.
And these things get out, and if they aren't used to being in that place, they'll travel miles.
Yeah.
And then they, somebody will spot them off a road, or another farmer will spot them out in his field. We'll normally go down there and we start out by just trying to find a track
mm-hmm.
and get dogs on it, and just let those dogs go out ahead of us and hunt until we hear them somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's big bulls and sometimes it's calves and cows, and just kind of whatever.
That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
Now, why do you run cur dogs versus like a border collie or a cattle dog or something like that?
Well, the curs are I'm going to say they're a little bit tougher.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily than all border collies. I've seen some tough border collies and stuff like that. But the curs are tougher and they track better.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's our main thing is having something that will track and go find cattle or wind cattle. And I'm not saying that a collie dog can't do that, but not very many collies bark or bay.
Yeah.
So if that dog's 400, 500, 600 yards, you never know what he was doing. He may be down there doing his best to hold them cattle, but he may be, I guess, unless you had a tracking collar on him, he may be down there all day long and you not know it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we run the cur dogs, and the curs are just the gathering cattle with a border collie or that type of dog works very well if the cattle are broke to a dog.
Yeah.
If they've had that done a lot, they know to respect the dog, then that's when that works well. But other than that, just sending a dog out there that cattle have never seen a dog,
mm-hmm.
they just want to fight. They want to fight that dog just like they're going to fight a coyote or anything else predatory wise.
Yeah.
So with the curs, the curs will get out there and they'll do what we call windmilling cattle, and they just circle and bay. Well, those cows, they'll come out and chase that dog, but that dog's just still going around the herd of cows.
Okay.
So it kind of gets everything windmilling and going around there, and eventually those cattle, a lot of times they'll kind of settle down, and they'll just stay in that bunch while those dogs are going around,
mm-hmm.
baying on them.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of got to sit back and let those dogs do their job, And, then you can kind of go to pushing those cattle somewhere or doing something like that. You got to let, have them lead dogs, tell them to get out and let those cattle move. And then if something goes off, but that's why we run the cur dogs, because they've got a little more hit to them. They're a little stronger, and they're better for breaking cattle to a dog.
Okay.
Getting the cattle used to being handled by a dog.
Mm-hmm. No, that does make some sense. I've not had extensive firsthand knowledge of cow dogs or anything, but I've been around a few guys that have worked cattle, and some of the things they've said to me. I mean, it does make sense.
Oh yeah, yep. And those dogs. We started out with, like I said, we had the two, and the old blackmouth. He was a pretty rough dog. My first female Catahoula, she didn't put teeth on anything, mm-hmm. which was just her. She'd bark, but she may bay from 15 feet.
Okay.
And then we got into some rougher dogs, and now we've backed off a little bit because they've got to have a little bit of bite to them to kind of hit that cow and get them to respect the dog if it's a bad cow.
Yeah.
But we don't want anything that's like a bulldog or something like that. We're not there to actually catch them with a dog.
Yeah.
So
I did see, this has been a couple of years ago, where guys were crossing some bulldog in with collies to basically make a little bit of a harder dog. And I always thought, I'm like, why wouldn't you just get a cur dog?
Yeah, and that would have made more sense to me. I mean, that's to me, it's almost the same thing, roughness wise.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't. I guess you don't have your hunt in there or your bay.
Yeah.
It didn't make a lot of sense to me, and it did kind of go on there. It seems like it kind of died off.
Okay.
I seen that a lot 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe, and it seems like that's kind of died off a little bit. But and there's a lot of guys still cross bulldog in with their Catahoulas or their curs.
Yeah.
I think that's more on the hog end of it.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's a little more common with guys that want to run and catch dog. They want something with a little nose. They want something that'll track a hog, but that will catch when it gets there.
Oh yeah. Yep. And like I said, we kind of backed our dogs off a little bit over the years. Got to using more of the black mouths and the Catahoulas.
Yeah.
They seem to have a little more circle to them to windmill cattle. And they just, a lot of them, I'm sure that you can get some different Catahoulas and stuff that have some more leg on them. But the black mouths were just a little more lean.
Okay.
And seemed like they covered the ground better.
Mm-hmm. So you're running like purebred registered black mouths or grade dogs?
Got a little bit of both.
Okay.
I don't have any. None of the dogs in my kennel right now have papers on.
Gotcha.
The two of the black mouths out there, they're out of the same blood. Come out of kind of West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
A buddy of mine raised them. Then I've got one female out there right now that come from Arkansas, and she's a little bit of the bigger footed, bigger boned black mouth.
Okay.
That came out of Arkansas. The others they're wicked fast. They're more greyhound built.
Gotcha.
So, and there's still a little Catahoula blood out there, but not a lot.
Gotcha.
I've got I think I have one Catahoula female left. So, and I tell you, some of the best dogs that I've had were half blackmouth, half Catahoula.
Okay. I've heard that's a common cross even in the hog dog world.
Yeah, and I still say that those were the best dogs that I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
They seemed like they hunted a little bit harder than the straight blackmouth. And I'm not saying that guys don't have blackmouths that hunt really hard, because I'm sure that they do, and I mean ours do. But just it seems like the Catahoula, if you get into the right Catahoula, there's almost maybe a little bit better nose in them than the blackmouth to me.
Okay.
And I just really feel like that was a good cross of dogs. Every one of them out of that litter went to work, and as far as I know, they're still well. I guess I say that one of them still working. One of them ended up a pet, but they're they're good dogs. They were good dogs.
Good deal.
They've got some age on them now and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
they were. That was a really good cross.
Yeah.
Caught a lot of cattle with them and a lot of hogs with them.
Oh, I'm sure. So you said you moved to Oklahoma for a while. Like, how long did you live down there?
4 years.
Okay. You do a lot of hog hunting while you're there?
Yeah, quite a bit. Actually started out hog hunting here in Indiana.
Really?
Which a lot of people don't think about Indiana for hog hunting, and it's.
I certainly didn't.
I don't want to get into politics on this deal, but they outlawed hunting hogs with dogs in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, I've heard of other states doing the same.
Yep, and they went on and did that. But there was I'd say probably 3 or 4 years here that we hunted at least once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, we'd try to slip off on a Wednesday evening or something like that, or night, and go. But yeah, we hunted hogs with dogs here for about 4 years.
Okay. Honestly, when you said hog hunting, and then you mentioned Oklahoma, I just assumed that's where you were hog hunting. I didn't realize there was hog hunting in Indiana.
Yep. Started out hunting them here, and then obviously when I moved out there, I still had the same dogs, so hunted them out there, and I still try to go take these cow dogs and go a couple times a year.
Nice.
And go out and hunt and visit buddies out there.
Mm-hmm. What differences would you say there is between cow dog and a hog dog?
There's not a lot. I've never had any trouble getting my cow dogs to hunt hogs or a hog dog. I guess I say that I've never had just a dog that was strictly a hog dog. It was my cow dogs have always been what I hunted hogs with.
Okay.
I guess the only difference is a lot of the guys hog dogs, they don't want them. They want them broke off of cattle, just like you'd break a coonhound off a deer.
Yeah.
You because a lot of times you're hunting hogs in a cow pasture.
Yep.
And you don't want that dog going and baying cattle.
Yep. That does make sense.
But a lot, just going back to how smart a cur dog is, a lot of the curs that we've had over the years, we could hog hunt them right through a bunch of cattle. Because I think the difference was if we were horseback, those dogs were hunting cattle.
Yeah.
And working cattle. If we were just, if we put on their cut gear and all that stuff and started walking through the woods, those dogs were hunting hogs.
Yep.
And I think they made that cross.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's a lot of people that'll tell you that, dogs can learn, especially if there's different gear or different ways, like you mentioned, horseback versus on foot,
yes.
That kind of stuff. Dogs learn that.
Yep.
They learn, okay, if we're hunting this way, we're hunting this game. If we're hunting this way, we're hunting the different game.
Yep. And that's, I've always just used these dogs to go do whatever it is I wanted to go do, whether it's go hog hunt or go decoy or go catch cows.
Yeah.
The same dog. I'm not into keeping a lot of specific different dogs for specific things.
Yeah.
Just being versatile.
No,
I guess is the thing about it.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a lot of times we'll catch cattle, once, twice, maybe 3 times a week. But then there may be a week where we don't have anything to go catch. So, like being able to go do other things with these dogs, keep them legged up, keep them going, and get them out of the kennels and go do something.
Yep. No, it makes a lot of sense. I got a local guy that does something similar. He's got hanging trees. You ever have any experience with them?
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I've had 2 of them. They're really neat dogs. Have you ever looked back on kind of the history of those dogs?
Yeah.
How those were Catahoula, Australian Shepherd, Border Collie, and maybe a McNabb dog.
Something like that. I think there's
something like that.
I think there was only one Australian Shepherd used, but I think a lot of it was Border Collie Catahoula crosses.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think that was a really good Australian Shepherd, they said.
Yeah.
I think that dog's name was like Hanging Tree Pete or something like that.
Yeah, it was because it was a ranch. The Hanging Tree was the ranch name that they came from.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and those dogs there. Well, so both of those dogs that I had, they would work cattle, and they were also would hunt hogs.
Interesting.
Those hanging tree dogs are very neat dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely athletic, extremely fast, but that whole deal. I think that guy's name was Gary Erickson, maybe that had those dogs.
I think you're right.
That made those dogs,
mm-hmm.
and he kind of made those to catch cattle, just like we're doing.
Yeah.
He wanted a dog that would, but he wanted more of to kind of get them broke like a border collie to gather. But he wanted dogs that would go hunt and would bark and would make some noise so he could find them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those are really neat dogs. You know, there's a lot of dogs that can go do a whole lot of different things out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I kind of got my start in the dog deal. My mom trained search and rescue dogs.
Okay.
When I was a kid growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was around a lot of dogs and stuff like that. And over the years, looking back now, you know, my mom took a lot of just mixed up mutt dogs and trained them to be search and rescue dogs.
That's
and we'd lay tracks that were 24 hours. You'll lay a track, and then she would send that dog to trail us. You know, obviously we didn't stay out there for 24 hours, but 24 hours later, we'd go back to a spot and she'd start where we started, and that dog would track us to where we was at. So, you know, when people start talking about this dog won't hunt or that dog won't hunt, I think that's kind of because the dog doesn't want to. It's not because they can't.
Yeah.
You know, the dog, they just, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of times that, you know, you can get about any dog to do what you want it to do if you spend enough time with it.
Yeah. No, and I think starting with a breed that, or something like, you know, that's been bred for generations, you're just making that a lot easier on yourself.
It helps a ton. It helps a ton. Well, that's just like when I contacted you about, you know, something that might tree.
Yeah.
You know, I've got all these dogs out here, and I'm sure I can get them to go hunt a coon. But well, to be honest with you, I've been playing with them on getting them to tree, and I'm going to tell you that I think it'll be a lot easier with a dog that actually wanted a tree.
Exactly. No, I see it all the time, especially on social media. People will be like, "Oh, I'm looking for a dog to do X," and then especially in the world of, you know, it's not, I don't know, not specific to like a hunting dog group. You know, someone wants a dog, you know, for a farm or something, and then you have everybody that says, "Oh, my lab does this, my Rottweiler does this," and it's like, but those dogs aren't bred to do that. Like, I'm not saying you can't get that one off that does, or that you didn't spend enough time with it, but why wouldn't you just start with a dog that has the genetic potential that's most likely going to turn out that way?
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, these cur dogs that we bake cows with, there's not any real training, I can't say, that goes into. We don't teach these dogs to go around cattle.
Yeah.
You know, they've got the natural instinct. That's what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get to be, you know, when we start out with puppies and they get to be, I normally try to let mine get big, you know, 7, 8 months old before I go put them on cattle, just because cattle are big.
Yeah.
And, you know, every now and then a dog gets stepped on and stuff like that. And I want that dog strong enough and got enough lung on it, stuff like that to go. But there's the biggest training part of it, I think, on these dogs is just getting them broke to handle.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to send them, to call them back, lay them down next to your horse. You know, just getting them where you can handle them. But their natural instinct is to go do that job.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think not saying that you probably couldn't get a poodle to go do it, but it's going to be a lot of work to get him to go do it.
Exactly.
You're going to have to run lots of circles around cattle, and it's going to be a job.
Yes, it would.
You know, there's times that we go, you know, all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you're hunting cattle that are loose, you have an idea where they might be, but they're also running on thousands and thousands of acres.
Yeah.
So, you know, these dogs here, they may have to go all day and then not find cattle till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then they have to go to work.
Yeah.
So, you know, having your dogs legged up and all that's a big thing.
Now, when you're hunting a lot of these cattle that are you hunting a lot of big country where it could be like that, or you hunting smaller
It just
areas?
depends. Like around here, used to, or let me use this for. So like out, you get out west, like my buddies out there. Everybody, the pastures are big,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody has a pretty good fence.
Yeah.
Because everybody runs cattle out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get back over here to Indiana, where we're at, a lot of the cow calf guys have gone to row cropping.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the fences have been taken out. The old fences aren't kept up. They've been dozed out. So now it's around here when one gets out, there's nothing to stop him.
Yeah.
So he may go miles and miles.
I gotcha.
Before he just finds him someplace. A lot of times when they get out, as long as nobody messes with them, once they initially get out and they go to traveling, they'll find them someplace where there's water and something to eat, and they'll just kind of make a home there.
Yep.
And that's where those cattle live. But that's why a lot of times we have to have somebody lay eyes on that calf or that cow or whatever before we come and start hunting it, because you have no direction to go off of,
Mm-hmm.
no idea where that one. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
So without the dogs, I would say that we could not do what we do without the dogs.
Yeah.
To me, it'd be impossible.
Oh yeah, definitely. But you wouldn't think a cow could disappear into a cornfield so quickly and like not leave a trace. Like you would think a cow would leave a trail. But daggum, them suckers can disappear into a cornfield in a hurry.
Oh yeah, yeah. And the thing about a standing cornfield is, like these things, depending on the cattle, depending on how long they've been out, or we get into a lot of cattle that's never been handled by man.
Yeah.
They've been born out there on this place, and the old timer may have passed away that originally had the cows, and the farm just kind of is there.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a bull out there and some cows, and they'll end up breeding, and then the family decides it's time to get rid of the cows.
Yeah.
And they at that point, most of the time the fences are bad and the cattle have been out a lot. Everybody's mad. That's neighbor wise. So these cattle that have never been worked or really been around people, they're not much different than any other wild animal.
Oh yeah.
They learn to hide. I've seen cattle lay off the side of a trail or be riding through a thicket or something and be a full grown cow laying there 5 feet away from you, and she's got her head tucked down underneath a bush and she's hiding.
That's crazy.
So when cattle like that end up out in standing corn, you can be two rows over from them and never know that they're there. So without the dogs barking at them, baying and knowing that they're there, you'd never find them.
No, so I don't have a lot of experience with wild cattle, but I grew up working on a dairy farm, and every now and again you'd have a cow or a heifer would get out, and they'd go into the standing cornfield because they'd be eating the corn.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying is like you wouldn't think a big white and black Holstein could disappear so quickly, especially like I said, without leaving a trace. Like that once they get into that corn, it's like they're gone.
Yep.
Now, like I said, these weren't wild cattle, so it wasn't super hard to get them back, but it was just funny, like how quickly and easily they disappeared. And I'm like, so I can understand how hard it is to find wild ones.
Oh, I'd say we just talking about the corn and cattle being wild. We got into a deal. It'd have been a few years back, and I can't remember if the gentleman moved away. Something happened. Anyway, this guy wasn't around, and he had like 4 or 5 cows, and 4 or 5 calves, and a big mature bull that had been running. I'm gonna call it the neighborhood. It was out obviously in cow country and cornfield, but they'd been all over everybody's property.
Yeah.
And we went in there and we sent dogs. We got all the cows and the calves bayed up, and we ended up roping all of them, getting them tied down, loaded. But that one old bull, everybody had been chasing him on 4-wheelers, trying to get him, stuff like that. He knew to go to the standing corn. And he went to the standing corn, and we sent dogs in there. And like I said, I've never been bear hunting,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I can just imagine that's about like hunting a grizzly bear. I mean, because you're standing corn with this bull, and I mean, they'll hit horses and try to turn horses over and everything else. Well, you know, those dogs, they're baited in this standing corn, and you're riding in there trying to push him out, and you can hear the dogs, and you know that he's there, but you don't know exactly where he is.
Can't see him.
And you'd be in there, and, you know, like I said, you can hear the dogs, and you know the dogs are right there on him, but then all of a sudden the corn would just explode, and old bull chase you out of there, be bumping your horse on the butt, and then he'd stop and he'd go the other way, and they'd go get him bait and stop again. And we fought that bull for 4 or 5 hours like that in there.
Mm.
And so, I mean, like I said though, if you hadn't had dogs on him, you would have had no idea where he was at.
Yeah.
At least we had some sort of a clue.
That's crazy.
But we get into a lot of stuff like that.
Conkeys Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkeys motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkeys carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well. Well, we definitely need a couple more stories like that.
Well, I mean, there's been some good ones. I'd say some of the best dog hunting we done was down, it'd been just south of the river in Kentucky, and that place I think they said was like 600 acre pasture, but then the backside of it didn't have any fence, so it was wide open, I guess.
Yeah.
But just all the hills and the hollers and the gullies and stuff like that, and all them things were wild. And I know we bait a lot of cattle and stuff like that in there, but you know, like I'm gonna say we had probably 12, I don't know, 10, 12, 13 dogs. Because heck, we even had a buddy from Oklahoma come up and bring some dogs and stuff. And, you know, that was rough enough down in there catching those things that by the time 2 or 3 days was over, we were about out of dog power. They were just, you know, got footsore, got tired.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of big bulls in that deal. Roped one up on top of a big old power line cut and didn't know how we was going to get him down. Finally bailed off it with a horse and dogs and bull. And finally everything come to a screeching halt at the bottom.
Jeez.
But we've taken out, you know, 4 or 5 foot cedar trees on the way down.
Holy smokes.
Between the bull and the horse and the rope. And like I said, when you got 4 or 5 dogs aggravating that bull, trying to get him off there. But it's a lot of fun. I'd say that, and got a call here a while back. We went up to Terre Haute and we're catching cattle on a university, around a university in town. And you talk about nerve-wracking, just having your dogs in town.
Yeah.
You know, 4-lane highway going through there. I mean, cattle were bayed up in the backyard. And when I say backyard, I'm talking like suburbs, like in the city. You know, people coming out and wondering what's going on, and you got one roped out there in the front yard and dogs barking, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. That stuff right there is when it gets really fun.
Yeah. Is this what you do for a living, or is this just fun?
No, I tell everybody it's kind of half, not even half and half, I guess. I shoot horses for a living.
Okay.
That's my main deal is being a farrier.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Ben trains horses for a living, ran cow horses. So we always try to keep like Wednesdays open, and then the weekends to catch cattle.
Okay.
I always figured that way. If somebody called on a Monday and had something out, I could say, well, we'll be there Wednesday.
Yeah.
Or if somebody called on Thursday, could be there by Saturday. Kind of keep it opened up to where we could get someplace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because there's not enough of it to make a full-time living doing it.
That's kind of where I was thinking.
Yeah, you know, it's enough to be honest with you. It's enough to kind of support the habit.
Gotcha.
Of having them dogs, and and doing it and, truck and trailer and all that.
Yeah.
It's just kind of enough to support the habit. Make a little bit, but you definitely not going to go pay all your bills and
Yeah. That makes sense.
take care of family and do all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, we do it a lot. I'd say, I don't even know how many head we've caught this year, but I know there's been several years we'll catch over 400 a year.
Wow.
So that's quite a few.
Yeah,
for
so.
our part of the world,
Yeah, it's not like you're
like I said,
you're not in Oklahoma or Texas where it's major big cow country.
No, we don't have the cattle around here that we used to anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
Now I will say, just to the east of me, just a little bit, you get into more of the hills and hollers and the limestone country, and it's not a lot of that's not farmable.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of cattle in that part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been doing some work over in there, gathering and weaning and stuff like that. The other thing about like the cur dogs, so like going in and doing those jobs and stuff like that, gathering and weaning and just working for guys, is a lot of the guys around this part of the world are, I don't want to say anti-dog on cattle, but it's not something that they grew up with.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of guys, if they've not been around it or not talked to one of their buddies that have used us and the dogs, they don't really know what to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously a lot of cow guys or guys that run cattle and stuff like that, they're kind of they don't want dogs in their cattle.
Yeah.
Because they're used to the neighbor's stray or something like that coming through and chasing cows to a pen.
Yep.
So we have to deal with that a little bit, but we are getting, over the years, have gotten it more to where a lot more guys know us and know the dogs,
mm-hmm.
and we spend a lot more time gathering stuff and using the dogs and stuff like that to get jobs done.
Yeah. That's good that you're building those relationships and those guys are kind of starting to see the value of it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I think it's just, used to, a lot of people use dogs to do a lot of things, and I think we've kind of got away from that in a sense.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's just like I've heard, so I've listened to some of their other podcasts and stuff like that where you just talking about where just the cur dogs. Used to, a cur dog was used for everything. It was used to gather the cattle and go hunt for food.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think a lot of people have gotten away from the dogs and don't understand maybe the best way to use them or that they can be used.
Yeah.
So we are getting a little bit more into that around here. Guys getting more used to it.
Mm-hmm.
Things of that nature.
Good deal.
Yep. So what kind of dogs are you running?
So I have leopard hounds / leopard. They were called leopard curs up until 2008 when UKC changed the name. But that just opens a whole lot of confusion with Catahoulas. They're not Catahoulas.
Yep.
I've got 2 of them. I've got a Faulkner cur. And then I've got a half leopard, half plot.
Okay.
Which he looks like a redbone. Everyone swears he's a redbone. I get complimented on how pretty my redbone is all the time.
And he's a plot.
His dad was a plot, and his mom was a leopard.
Okay. Now I ran a plot hound for a few years.
Yeah.
On cattle.
Uh-huh.
And I really thought I was doing something good when I started that. I thought this thing will, be a little colder nosed dog.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we get a phone call, a lot of times, most of the time people are going to do everything that they can to try to get their calf back or their cattle back before they call us.
Yeah.
They're going to try to do it themselves, which, I completely understand. But then, you're normally, at the very fastest that we could probably get there would be 2 hours. By the time, we get horses loaded and dogs loaded and get everything. So you're hours behind. So I thought I'll get a plot hound, be a little colder nosed, be able to put it on a track and, maybe go get that done a little bit better.
Yeah.
And, that old plot, she was good. And I got her where she'd hunt cattle well, but she didn't care once she found them.
Okay.
She would track good, and she would go and she would open up and she'd just about get a base started on cattle. But then she may just drop her nose and go on and go hunt, especially if the cattle weren't moving. If the cattle were standing still, she'd just lose interest. She'd go hunt something else.
That's funny.
And I fought that with that dog for a while, and then actually sent her to. I done a little trading on Blackmouth, and she's out in Oklahoma hunting hogs.
Okay.
So
hogs probably caught her interest a little more.
Oh yeah, yep. She likes that.
That's funny.
And like I said, she really wanted to go hunt a cow when you turn her out, and she really wanted to go find it. But once it was found, she was done with it.
Yeah.
She didn't care about it after that. But no, that's just kind of what we do. I mean.
Mm-hmm. And now you're looking for a tree dog, huh?
Well, I've been kicking it around. Like I said, my girlfriend, she hunts coons, does a little competition hunting.
Okay.
And so I get to go coon hunting quite a bit anymore. And I'm just, like I said, I'm more of a cur dog guy, and thought about getting a tree dog to kind of go dump out and go play with a little bit.
Yeah. What kind of hounds is your girlfriend running?
Walkers.
Okay.
Yep. Her and her family, they run walkers.
Gotcha.
So I'm not. I'm kind of new to the coon hunting deal. I went a little bit when I was a kid with an older gentleman that kind of took me hunting and fishing all the time. But I always tell everybody that was back before Garmin's and all that stuff. And
yeah.
The most coon hunting, the most I ever seen a coon dog do back then was you turned him loose at the truck, and that was always the last time we ever seen him for a couple of days. So I never was too big on coon hunting after that. But
yeah,
after starting and going with her, I kind of enjoy it.
It's a little different now.
Yeah. Like I said, that was, I don't even know when that would have been, but I know a lot of times it was 2 or 3 days before we got that dog back. Be it the neighbors or 2 miles down the road or.
Yep.
And there was a couple of times that dog beat us back to the house. We walk all over the place looking for him, and then he'd be at the house when we get there. So
crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
No, modern Garmin's have changed the coon hunting game significantly.
Oh, it's changed our cow catching game. We just recently started running them. We always just ran the what was that? The Pro 70s tracking or shot collars.
Okay.
Training collars.
Yeah.
And we always ran those, and just here recently changed over to the Garmin's, and that has been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of times those dogs, they'll go bay cattle, go find cattle and be bayed, but we just keep having to ride and ride and ride trying to hear them dogs. And now we just kind of look at that thing and know that dog's 600 yards through the hills and hollers this way.
Yep.
And you can just ride that way, and it's changed it a ton. It's great.
I would imagine so.
I'm still trying to figure out how to run the thing the best, but it's a whole lot different.
Yeah.
But it sure is handy.
Yep, definitely.
So.
Well, you got any more stories for us?
Oh, man, I've got all kinds of stories, but man, after years and years doing this, but I mean, they're all about the same. I mean, send the dogs and see how bad the wreck's going to be when you get there.
Yeah.
But that's the funnest part is just dumping the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Dumping the dogs and waiting on them to go hit. I was just sitting here just looking around, looking at pictures, and we followed them things to Oklahoma and caught cattle. We followed them to Kentucky, Ohio.
Wow.
But and I'd say that the funnest thing of it all is whenever somebody has had a calf out there for months,
mm-hmm.
and they can't get it found, and then you dump your dogs, and your dogs go get it found in 30 minutes, or an hour. It makes you feel pretty good about your dogs.
Definitely.
It's just it's a little different, but it's a good time.
Sounds like a lot of fun. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, yep.
And your videos are crazy. I definitely got to give your Instagram a plug. Anybody that's on Instagram, go check out Indiana Cow Catchers because Spencer's got some pretty cool videos of roping cows and loading cows and dogs bait up.
Well,
So
well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I try to do a better job of wearing a GoPro or
hmm
videoing, but it's just kind of hard to video
oh, I'm sure.
when you're doing something.
Yep.
You always want to, but then you're also always trying to get dogs called out or send dogs or pay attention to what's going on and
hmm
all of that stuff. So
Oh yeah.
it's a little bit different. No, I guess I can't think of any like super cool stories. I mean, I was just sitting here trying to think, but
No
I mean,
doubt.
I mean you know to us we just go do it all the time, and
Yeah.
uh, it's actually gotten to the point where I try to write everything down that we go do so I can kind of remember it.
hmm
But maybe even when I get old, be
There you
able
go.
to remember it.
Yep.
But no, just catching a lot of stuff out in the coal mine ground and stuff. And like I said, without the cur dogs, we'd never be able to get it done.
hmm
And I'd say probably something that people like to see a lot. I don't get it videoed a lot, but is loading the cattle on trailers out in the pasture with the dogs.
Yeah.
You get those dogs to circling them cattle and get them cattle bayed, and those dogs they'll just keep circling and holding those cattle, and you can get those cattle kind of bunched up to your horse,
hmm
and then ride your horse up for the trailer, and you just load everything with the dog.
That's pretty
And
cool.
that's something that I think those dogs, after they've done it a time or two, that they figure that out.
hmm
That when you get to that trailer, they just don't, they almost spread out and all hold their sides and keep working those cattle onto a trailer.
hmm
So that's something I don't get videoed very often, and people always ask about. But
Yeah. My question is when you load cattle with that you've lassoed, how in the world do you
uh-huh.
get that rope off that cow once it's in that trailer?
Well, we got those half top trailers,
hmm
and we've got what we call a chicken catcher, and it's just a piece of, like an axe handle or a shovel handle,
Yeah.
and we got a rod in the end of it that's bent like a hook.
Yep. Oh,
And you reach in there and hook that thing, because otherwise they just break your arm.
yeah. That's what
You
I'm thinking.
stick your arm through the slat, they'll just break your arm. We get that chicken catcher and reach in there and hook that rope and pull it off there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
That's where I'm like, how in the world are you getting that rope off of that?
Oh
You
yeah.
got a 2,000 pound bull that is madder than a hornet. You know.
Oh yeah. That can, and I tell you what, loading the cattle is sometimes the biggest job out of all of it.
Yeah.
I think loading the cattle is normally the biggest job.
Oh, I'm sure.
But you send the dogs and you get them bayed, and you go out there and you get them roped, and that's always kind of a fun deal there. You get them caught and then tied down, and then then trying to get them out of there.
hmm
That's when it gets interesting. If you can't get the truck and trailer to them, then you've got to lead them out.
Yeah.
And sometimes leading that stuff out is kind of a chore.
I would imagine so.
Pulling and trying to pick horses up, and it's one of those deals that sometimes you just gotta laugh about it.
hmm
Otherwise,
sure.
you feel like you're gonna die, so you might as well just laugh about it. But it's a lot of fun sometimes, and sometimes it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. I've got a good story for you. So we were catching. There's about 3 or 4 head, if I remember right. They'd been out all summer long, and they'd been all over the place, and neighbors and this and that. Finally found these things probably, I don't know, a mile and a half from where they were supposed to be. And they come back down into the pasture, and the dogs were on them, and just trying to get through the hills and hollers and the brush, but you could just hear the dogs were on them. and we get down there in the pasture, and we got 2 of them caught, and we sent the dogs after he was about an 800-pound bull that crossed the county road and went up into some brush. And those dogs took off, and we could kind of hear them, but it was real faint, and it sounded funny. Well, we got up there, and they had that bull bayed up on a guy's front porch. And when we got up there, everything come off the porch and went on. And the guy come out the door, and we got to talking to him, and he said, I heard a bunch of commotion on the porch, and he said, I opened the door up, and he said, that bull tried to come in the house. And he said, I shut the door back, and he said, everything finally left.
Wouldn't that be a way to, like I said, completely unaware, you hear a bunch of noise, dogs barking, you open your front door, and there's a bull trying to come in your house.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And that we've had that happen twice. The other one didn't try to go in the house, but this was just a month or 2 ago. They come out of some standing corn into some people's yard, and luckily it was the guy that owns the cattle. It was a relation of his, but that big old steer got up there on the front porch. Jeez. and the dogs had him bait up on the front porch, and I just kept saying, gosh, don't jump through that picture window.
Yeah.
If you go through that picture window, we are going to be in a world of trouble. Right then, you kind of get nervous and go to calling dogs back. And
I'm sure.
Everything else, trying to give them a little relief so they'll go somewhere else.
Yep. That's crazy.
But every now and then we'll get into something like that. But for the most part, it's just out in the timber or something like that. Just biggest things, trying to keep dogs and cattle and stuff like that off the road.
Oh, I'm sure that's hard.
Just, and especially not ever really knowing where you're at. Yeah. I'd say with these Garmins, it'll help a lot because the guy can look at that Garmin and kind of tell where the roadways are.
Yep.
But when we pull into a place, that's 2 hours from home, and turn dogs loose, you don't know what's back in there at all.
Exactly.
Houses and rivers and roadways, and that's always my biggest fear is something getting to a roadway.
Oh yeah. So a lot's the same as the same things that we as hunters deal with tree dogs. Same kind of deal.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's hunting. Hunting the cattle. I don't think it's any different than hunting anything else.
Yeah.
These dogs, they're trained to track and hunt cattle.
Yep.
Where yours are trained to hunt coon or bear or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's all what you train them to do. And like I said, I like to hunt anything with a dog. I just enjoy it.
I'm right there with you. So. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Spencer.
Yes, sir. Fun. Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Yep.
Got anything else?
Oh, not that I can really think of. I wish I did, but that's about the extent of it.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
As always, be sure to check out the sponsors, Conkeys, Full Cry, and W for all of your hound hunting needs. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talkin' Media, and until next time, keep them talking in the timber.